So again, welcome everyone. As I was saying, I'm Dr. Lindsay Pollock, Provost at Sarasota University, where we offer bachelor's completion program, master's degree, Masters of Arts degrees in Montessori education and Montessori leadership, as well as a Doctor of Education and a doctoral completion program. And what that means is if you've started a doctoral program somewhere else, and you'd like to finish your degree at a Montessori university, we invite you to start that conversation with us. We'd love to talk to you about that. This evening we have Tatenda. Tatenda, I apologize. I see the name on the screen, and I don't want to mispronounce your last name. So I think our release said Tatenda blessing on it. And we're so delighted to hear from you. Tatenda is internationally renowned Montessorian who is often associated with the important work that he has done with his Montessori on Wheels, his Montessori bus. And so we're excited to hear about what you're doing now, Tatenda, and I'm so grateful for your time this evening and for coming to enlighten us about the important work you're doing.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here as well.
Do you have a PowerPoint that you'd like to share, Tatenda? Is it working for you?
All right, let me bring that up on the screen.
Ah,
Are you able to
perfect.
see my screen?
Yes, yes.
All right. Is it my time?
Yes, sir. Yep.
All right, already. Well, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. It is literally 2 a.m. Here in Zimbabwe, where I'm at.
Oh my
So that just goes
goodness.
to tell you how much I'm excited to be up at night on a Wednesday morning on the other side of the world to share the good work that we're doing with people who are also doing important work wherever you find yourself right now. So my name is Tatenda Blessing Muchiriri, the founder of Montessori on Wheels, a mobile learning program in Denver and around the world, where we are focused on really thinking what it means to bring access to different communities that haven't had exposure to Montessori education, and really in ways in which parents are invited to co-create that learning and understanding who their child is as a learner. So our work really centers on rethinking the role of parents and bringing back the magic of learning in communities that are often thought not to really care so much about learning and using Montessori as a strategy. So we are really not a school. We are a program that is really centered on thinking innovatively about education using the Montessori method as a strategy. So our work really looks very fun because we get to play with it, right? Which is something that is very, I would say there's something that most Montessorians are not used to because of the way in which the materials are viewed as sacred and very special. And here at MOW, we believe that they're meant to be explored. So we always ask our question, what happens when we give parents and children access to touch them and ask questions and see what happens from there. And we have come to redefine ourselves as evangelizing Montessori, the Montessori method, in ways in which then, our parents will hopefully find their way into Montessori schools if they can, or choice into a Montessori program, however it's offered in their environment or in their communities. So that is our work. It started off in 2020 when the world went inside because of COVID. I remember very well how so many people would, coming off Zoom, on Zoom or on any social media with a recipe to make bread. And I didn't know how to make bread. I was like, what can I do as a teacher? So I reflected on the way in which I defined myself. And that then came out for me as really thinking about what does this time mean for me if we're to go back uh, uh, and do Montessori better. And the answer for me was really thinking about breaking the walls of the classroom and taking that which we really love so much into the community. So I had been teaching then for about, I want to say 12 years. So I discovered Montessori when I was in Beijing in 2008 by a mere chance of visiting, doing something totally different, and somebody thought that um, it was good use of my time to come and visit a school there. And I thought like it was interesting that I was being invited to come and audit, something called Montessori that I had no idea of as someone who was coming from Zimbabwe that time. But curiosity led me to a classroom of little kids who were working so independently. And I remember being so shocked, like a 3-year-old can actually engage in some learning that is structured and also very playful, where teachers were not at the center of that learning or in the front of the kids. Um, and being reminded so much of how I had grown up in Zimbabwe outside, playing, being given choices to engage in what I wanted with the help of the adults around me. So for me, that realization that something that I'd grown up as play on the other side of the world was structured as some way of learning that was very intentional got me interested to really want to learn more. So I called my mom. I'm like, gosh, I have just experienced this school or this learning, which is so, so different, yet also feels very familiar. And they invited me to take the training and, become a teacher if I wanted to. Uh, which she said, sure, go for it. So I went back to Zimbabwe and I said, I'll come back only for 6 months just to see if I like it. And I was there for 8 years before I then moved to Denver, Colorado in 2015 and then got my 3 to 3 training, 3 to 6, and I did 6 to 12 auditing. So that's my Montessori background into Montessori and how we came to the creation of Montessori on Wheels in 2020. And I'll be speaking more of the program in my presentation, but I want to just give you like a bit of the background on the work that we do. So tonight, I really want to invite you all to think with me how we can innovate in Montessori education for equity, because our work really centers on giving access and rethinking what access looks like in Montessori education. For us, it is through that medium of the Montessori on Wheels, how we're able to really put the materials on a bus and travel with them to those communities that are often existing a mile and of the access in terms of high quality ECE. Lindsay, I want to just check if you can see my slides okay. I don't want to assume that everyone can.
Yes, I can see now the
Yes, we
slide
can
that
see.
says why equity in education matters.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Sure.
So, what really started this work, like I said, was really trying to understand the way in which we were thinking. And by say we, I really think about people who were around me that time, be it friends, communities, parents, uh, that leaned in and were able to create this concept. I woke up one day with an idea, And it wasn't just me who then said, okay, I'm going to do everything, right? I had to talk to my fellow teachers, the schools that I was working at that time in Denver Public School District, and those that I'd worked with in Boulder, Colorado, and in Denver in different Montessori private schools, and just like friends who cared so much about education. So we then really came together over a period of 6 weeks where I really gave myself that summer of 2020 to engage in conversation around what happens when we move education from our classroom. So the initial idea didn't have a bus. It was just like me thinking actively about what happens when we, move education from our schools and reclaim it back for our parents in communities where we find either immigrants, refugees, black and brown, and people of color. So then, for me, it was recognizing what were some of the challenges that existed, so that we can really think about what is it that we're doing here or how we're doing what we're doing. So some of it really was just the deficit around access to learning for young children. We all know that this is a reality in the United States and also even outside, as we are discovering that there are places that you could be situated that doesn't really have any good offering of that learning at that age. So we really wanted to understand what happens when we really move and stretch ourselves to that end and make sure that they too are also uh, given that access. One of the things that we value at Morrison Wills is that parents cannot choose what they're not exposed to. So then exposure became very important to us as a way of really giving them access so that they're able to choose it either for themselves or for their own children. One of my favorite stories that I remember in the early days was how we had spent that summer working with parents. It was during COVID, so we were taking the Montessori materials to a park and engaging them in some understanding of what Montessori education was. That what they really enjoyed was the idea that they got to understand what Montessori was through those interactions, and for them, that gave them a new story of them being able to also say that they've had a Montessori, exposure. They've had a Montessori experience by way of understanding it in their own communities without having to actually be enrolled in a school. Because we know that for some, they still think of it as very affluent, very expensive. So we then saw ourselves as giving them also that experience of Montessori through either our weekend classes or our open classes at the park when we drove our cars, me and my friends, to offer Montessori education. So we really wanted to make sure that this narrative of where you are situated, be it because of your zip code or your race or your status, be it immigration or economic status, really doesn't define your experience in Montessori. That you also find yourself in the story of experiencing what really it means. To understand who the child is as a learner and how learning happens when we are very intentional, when we have these protected environments that are set up to engage the child in a more holistic way that engages their body and all their senses. So we've come to understand that when we think of equity, it really doesn't ask what's wrong with the child, right? But we really look at the system that are allowing that learning not to support the child. So we're really looking at the system. For us, it was either transportation that most of these parents don't have easy access to find themselves even in public Montessori's that are offered within Denver or charter schools or even programs that really don't ask them to pay. So we really wanted to look at that as an access point for us, like what happens when we then shrink that distance when we come to them. And as we were doing that, we also discovered that we were also rewriting the narrative of education because most schools we tend to do education to parents, to children, not with them. But when we go into their communities, as we do at Montessori Rules, we get to do education with them. They are literally on our bus for the first time, for most of them, looking at their child as a learner, understanding what they like to learn, how they like to learn, and what they get to choose for them as they interact with learning. So for them, it was a different experience of being in an environment of learning where they are seeing their child as a learner, not being called to just talk about the behavioral issue or something that has happened in school. So that really became an entry point for us where parents felt that they too had a role in co-creating that learning or in witnessing how they can also learn how to support their child at home. So why Montessori, right? We could have chosen anything else, right? To really, use it on our bus to rethink access and innovation in education. But like I said, I think the understanding that Montessori was going to be a good tool for us to get into our own communities was something that I valued. I mean, I think it just came naturally that I was a Montessori trained teacher, so that's the only thing that I knew how. But I would also think about, different methods that I was exposed to when I was in Beijing, method that we also was exposed to in the United States. But Montessori really came out as a strategy that we could use to do the work that we do. And we know that it's this old method that seems so new to most of our families or to most of our communities that really has that promise to really understand or help us understand how we can engage our communities, how we can engage our parents, how we can engage children in a learning that really supports them. So the understanding that Montessori in itself is very adaptive. It is something that when you know it so well, you're able to really use it in ways in which it responds to the communities, to the different cultures, to different backgrounds of people that it's in service of, right? So that was, I think, where we started to really define Montessori for us as an adaptive pedagogy that we can use to implement our work. And in education, one thing that is important is dignity, right? Really seeing the parents for who they are, really seeing the children for who they are, which I think Montessori does so well with focusing on the child, having to be a very individualized learning that seek to get at the core of that love of learning that is natural to the learner, that is even natural to the parents. The idea that parents are their child's first teacher and forever teacher, we tap into that, right? And we think that Montessori really honors that when we do so well by enrolling all the parents as well into the Montessori way of learning and understanding how learning happens. Um, and we knew very well that by bringing Montessori education, we are really honoring the whole child, like who they are as learners, how their mind works, really understanding child development through that lens. Uh, and also engaging their body. We know that some of our Black and brown kids learn through movement, through rhythm, and that their spirit also can be contained in a space where they're not just expected to sit and learn. Um, and that when we really do it so well by observing and understanding where they're coming from and their communities and their culture, we're able to really bring this learning that is very self-directed as a response to understanding these children as learners. And most of our learners um, are really looking for ways in which they're in environments that can really support them for who they are as people coming from different cultural background that have them, process things in different languages. And we know that in Montessori, having a space that is very almost passionate enough to capture and contain that was a way in which we really thought of Montessori as something that was going to be a good strategy in connecting with our parents in that way. Um, Lindsay, I don't know, is it something that you want me to sort of pause as people ask questions, or I go through the whole presentation and make time at the end for questions?
Um, Great question, Tatenda. I don't see any questions in the chat at this time. And for our participants, please, if you have any questions as we're going along, please feel free to drop those in the chat. And yes, to Tatenda, at the end, we can also provide space for any questions as well.
All right, thank you. I'll let you be my timekeeper.
Yes, sir. I'm
Yes.
watching the chat too.
All righty, thank you so much. Yes. Uh, and again, I think we all know this, that Montessori hasn't been in education, that has uh, been given to all. So we knew that for Montessori for us, we wanted to really redefine what access looks like, but also making sure that it also exists in communities that it hasn't had any footprints, especially communities that are, low income or predominantly Black and Brown people of color. So the gap, right? We actually have to recognize the gap that exists within Montessori today. I think it is um, uh, it is something that we often don't think about as we really think about the good that is Montessori. We then tend to just live in our own bubble and fail to realize that there are things that are also Montessori that then creates this gap in access or in ways in which we then think about how do we innovate within it as we really bring everyone to it. When we like so much something that works well, you would think that it should then lend very well with everyone to make it more accessible and make sure that everybody has access to it. But with its own structure, formation, and experience, it tends to be a bubble. Um, so these are some of the things that we actually even heard from our parents when we were piloting this program in 2020 and 2021. So we did a year of listening, of empathy interviews and discovery where we didn't just set up with the bus right away. The bus actually came in 2021 in August of 2021. So we had a year of really just meeting parents in their communities, be it at church, at the library, at the park, where we were talking to them and bringing materials to them to really understand if they had knowledge or if they had interacted with Montessori. And most of the things that we had was just this idea of high tuition, which is often something with private schools for the right reason of having to set up such an offering through a private offering, right? That then it's a tuition based and it's private model, which doesn't make it very public and accessible to a lot. And most of our parents also talked about it in ways in which it was also very Eurocentric. It was very disconnected to those who then had maybe an experience of Montessori that they didn't see their stories also being told in Montessori. So one thing that you'll see when you come on Montessori Wheels bus is that it's very cultural, right? One of our parents who walked onto our bus the first time, we had two grandparents. One of my favorite picture that we have here at Bus on Wheels is two grandparents who were just like having a morning walk, and we're still setting up the bus in Parkview in Denver, getting ready to launch it. Very nervous, our hearts were beating so fast. We had no idea if people would really like the idea of of a bus. Though we knew that we had created this with the children who had helped us like paint the bus and dreamed with us what they wanted to see on the bus. When they got on the bus, the first thing that they said was just like, "Oh my goodness, this is a cultural hibiscus." As they interacted with the golden beads and everything on the bus, they were able to just see how this was inviting enough to shine the light on different cultures that kids would connect with, be it touching the basket as a sensory experience, but also reminding them about something that maybe it's in their own culture, it's at home, or something that they see in a grandma's house. So we've really made it very intentional to mirror some of their stories, some of the artifacts and visual sightings that they connect with their own culture and family. So we really wanted to make sure that the Montessori story is not only taught from from Dr. Maria Montessori from Italy, but like really how the inspiration was also meant to be something that was accessible to everyone.
That's so beautiful, Tatenda. Did you have any families who were maybe a little more cautious about, maybe it took a little convincing that this might be something to explore?
Not really.
Wow.
Um, I think there was something around the bus itself being just uh, a motif, right? Like just
Sure.
very magical, that it was inviting enough for them to come um, on the bus. And I think the idea that they were able to just walk on the bus and really be allowed to explore was a good entry point into really making them, ease into the Montessori understanding of the method itself.
Wow.
If anything, most people would then ask, like, so where can I find this? So, which school, where is more of this, right? So we exist
Mhm.
as sort of, in that space where we're like a very good big billboard for Montessori, right? Of like, oh wow, this is so cool. Tell me which school, in the district, or do you even have a school that's attached to this bus? And I'll tell you
Sure.
this, what was very interesting for me as someone who didn't grow up in the United States was when we set the bus out. I learned very quick that Americans were very nostalgic because it reminded them of the magic school bus, right? So there was
Sure.
also this novelty around like Mrs. Frizzle, right? Which I then had to go and read and watch, to make sure that
Right.
when the kids come on the bus and they expect to see magical things, I actually have a context in which they also like are thinking about the magic school bus itself.
I love
So it was
that.
really
Yeah.
nice to
Nice.
like interact with most families and kids as well, as they sort of remember what they grew up with on their television and seeing it come
Mhm.
to life. Um, which I think the story then really became like there's really nothing magical. This is what education is meant to be, to actually be very practical. So it's not just something that's on the television with Mrs. Frizzle. It's something that you yourself can engage with on the bus here at Montessori and Wales. One of my other favorite story is when we were parked in Five Points. This is a place in Denver that uh, has been gentrified, but still has some pockets where people are really trying to keep as is. One of the parents that came on the bus, this African American father with his two kids, he really was just in awe of how he remembered very well when he was bused out of their own communities to a different school, the busing system, and he made a reflection to us that the way in which that they've internalized buses is this idea that they take them away from their own communities to better schools where there's better education. But seeing the Montessori News bus, it was as if that learning now was coming to them to stay within their own communities. They were not, expected to go somewhere else, but literally just think of education that's within their own communities. So it made us really think about how on Montessori News we are offering that space where kids and parents come on our bus and they get to see the community as one learning classroom, a place where they can dream and play and design that learning. So we also unintentionally um, uh, sort of giving them a different script to the idea of a bus as it connects to education and to some of their either lived trauma or the way in which they remember a time when they were taken out of their own communities. So we didn't struggle at all. If anything, where we struggled most was on internet, where most of our Montessorians, as they learned about what we're doing in Denver, they were shocked to see. I think if you go on the internet, on a web, on Instagram, you see pictures of these parents on the bus just touching the materials as if, it is not organized in ways in which most people see their prepared environment and the normalization of the child. For us, it looks very different, the way in which we then think of normalization of the child and of the parent on the bus. So they were really nervous about how these materials were just being not cared for. Yet we were really centering on one of our values, which was exploration. Like, really, what happens when they get on the bus and they get to just touch without even being given a lesson? What questions do they have, right? Because then you have, school experiences where you don't have parents who are asking, now, what is the golden beads, aim or use, or what are the geometric solids, right?
Sure.
They're almost like a display in most of the Montessori classrooms, but on our bus, it is something that they get to touch and ask questions and giving us an opportunity to really redefine access. I really want to like stress this because that's another way in which we think about innovation through access and equity as we define and redefine it differently for us here at Montessori on Wheels. So the way in which we think of access when we think of the materials, Montessori materials, is We are really extracting the elements that are embedded in the materials that make learning so easy, fun, and attractive, or calling to the child to engage with it. So we think of it like if our parents are not able to buy the pink tower, as those who've been
Mhm.
trained, are we able to understand what's in the pink tower that makes a child, engage with this learning of differentiating the size visually? That has then become access when we give them the meaning behind the pink tower, the elements that are in the pink tower, so that they can go home and recreate it for their own child, however, without really having to have the pink tower blocks, to just taking something of different size, that being becomes the pink tower. So we really think about when they ask those questions, we're extracting the elements that are embedded in the geometric solid, that are in the golden beads, to really give them
Mhm.
that as access, that when you go home, you don't need to buy these materials. You need to have the
Right.
knowledge that you can recreate in ways in which it sustains and support that love of learning, so that when they interact with it at school or somewhere else, they're able to really learn the same way those who actually have the pink tower at home are also learning at school. So for us, that they became the access. But for most Montessorians around the country, it was an area that they sort of cautioned, and they worried that
Mhm.
these materials were just being like played and not being given the significance in which they deserve. So yeah, but that was a very good question. So we then existed to really close that gap, so that we don't really have parents who don't have the Montessori story because they didn't go to a Montessori school.
Wow.
I think I
That's
sort of like
wonderful
really,
to take.
yes, thank you. I think I've already talked about who we are as we were talking about the story of us, right? Um,
Right.
Yes, but I think on this slide, I can just think about how we are grounded in joy, that we really love the idea that they're having so much fun. So that's one thing that we also
Mhm.
track as an outcome. Just giving ourselves time to see how when the kids are on the bus, they're just so happy, right? For us, that is a win, because we really want to bring that back for them, that when they go to school, the environment should just make them happy. They should be able to explore and really enjoy being a learner in an environment. I think for us, it's easy because naturally children love buses. So, yeah.
That's so important. I was on a webinar just recently where we were talking about the element of joy and how important it is for children and for the adults in the classroom, for our families. There's a gentleman, his name is Rich Sheridan, who wrote a book called Joy Inc. He's a businessman, but he found that by creating a culture of joy, the actual output of employees improved. So fewer sick days, better performance, and happier outcomes all the way around. So I think that's an element we often miss in schools because we're so preoccupied by maybe the lessons and wanting to do things, we're all high achievers as educators and we want to do our best and make sure that everything is done to perfection. And I think sometimes that might get in the way of creating those joyful spaces. So a balance, right, is really important.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And some of our work that we've done after the United States, we did a fellowship where we are really piloting this concept of using joy as a unit of measurement. Like, what if we actually measure success through joy?
Right.
Um,
And Dr. Summers in the chat has added that Rich Sheraton, it was at Menlo Innovations. I believe that is in Michigan. He also wrote the book Chief Joy Officer. Thank you, Bill.
yes, I would want to have that title to be the chief
Ann
joy
Arbor,
officer at a
yes,
school.
yes, right. I would love that title as well, Chief Joy
Uh,
Officer. I want that job.
yes. Yes. I think every chief of learning in every school institute should be a chief joy. I think learning
Right?
should, be centered on
Absolutely.
joy.
Yeah, and we
Yeah.
could, add that to our title as a classroom leader as well.
Hmm.
The classroom guide. We are the chief joy officers in all of those positions of leadership.
Yeah. Um, I think I've sort of touched on this too, like how are we
Mhm,
innovating in Montessori? That in our design of our programs,
mhm.
uh, so we really think of equity through design, like what
Absolutely.
happens when we really understand our families, our communities, our children, and then
Mhm.
we create with them something that then as was responding uh, to those gaps or to their needs or to their curiosity, if anything. Because one of the stories that we had in 2020 was one parent saying that when we were asking them about if you know of what the Montessori, school looks like or what is Montessori education, most of them were like, "Oh yeah,
Mhm.
that school." They would point to a school that they either saw driving or walked past through, so it was something at a distance.
Right.
Um, and we didn't want that to be a story. We really wanted to have them understand that if a school exists within their own communities, they need to understand, what the school is and have access to that school. If anything, that was the purpose of schools, right? When they were
Mhm.
really nestled and embedded in communities, it was really for communities to understand the offering that was within their own communities and for the schools to respond to those communities. So we
Mhm.
really wanted to make sure that even in our design, we are not just bringing a bus that is so foreign, but what happens when Montessori gets into communities, when it locates itself in a community, what is it? What is it learning? And what are the communities also learning about Montessori? And so it became really a very
Mhm.
responsive act, not something that we just importing and bring into people, but really trying to understand that Monster can also find itself in communities when it locates itself within how they understand education and how they respond to education. So mobility to us was very important. We are literally on wheels, right? So you can
Right
find us
on the bus.
anywhere.
Yes.
We're just everywhere, right?
It's great.
It's crazy. In our first year, we had more than 1,000 people who came through the bus. The bus was just like
Wow.
going everywhere, as far as even Boulder, Colorado, from Denver, even into Estes Park. We were literally on wheels all the time. We were just driving the bus, making sure that everyone would either see the bus and know that there's a word, even Montessori, right? So that they can go home and look
Right.
it up. And for those who were able to get on the bus, they were able to touch the materials and understand it. So we really evangelized in Montessori. We didn't do any deep learning the first year. We just wanted to make sure that everybody has access, through exposure. Then in our
Mhm.
second, third year, we started thinking about what does it mean to do continuous learning. Uh, Continuous learning, that's when we then thought of this model where the bus comes every Tuesday to your location. So if it's Tuesday, we are parked at a community in Denver in East Colfax, they know that every Tuesday the bus will come to them. So maybe this week it will come as the practical bus where we only have practical materials on the bus. Or maybe it comes as sensorial or it comes as language. So that the fifth visit, it has all the materials, and then we get to see where they sort of gravitate towards more, and then we repeat that cycle. So it also works in that way for those who are more interested in continuous learning on the Montessori News Bus, that each week then becomes an area of the Montessori classroom where
Mhm.
today we're only focusing on math, so the bus only has math materials that the kids and the parents are interacting with. Next week it's only language Thursday, maybe the other week it's only science. But then the fifth week we then bring all the 4 weeks onto the bus to then understand, okay, what is it really that they are really gravitating towards more? Then we sort of understand how we can do better next time when we bring something that maybe they're not yet finding more joy or fun engaging with within our materials. Um, and for us, really, because we work with so much black and brown kids, we then focus more on the Afrocentric, cultural responsiveness to that approach, to really center their storytelling, coherent response, and ways in which we even like the texture of the materials as we add more to that experience, be it through science or practical life or language. I think I already spoke about this slide program. So what we offer, um, we offer like really three main programs in Denver. Then the other programs are really outside of Denver, though we're sort of thinking about how we can also bring them to Denver, Colorado. So usually our bars are for ages between 3 and 12, though even those who have little kids are welcome. It's just that it's not designed so well to have the little ones get on the bus by themselves. So we're also thinking about access as it also pertain to like how do you get the 2-year-old get on the bus, right? So that they too also
Right.
have the environment. But for now, we sort of see like our 4, 5-year-olds are the ones that are able to literally on their own, step on those bus steps as they get on the bus. So we serve that age group, 3 to 6, and 6 to 12. On the bus. We even did high school at some point in Denver. That was a nice pilot where we invited to work with high school students. Um, there's a school in Denver that serve students who are navigating the justice system. So these are high school students either who have had babies or they have like an active case within the justice system. So they really
Mhm.
wanted us to bring our Montessori bus for them to then also think about how they can help their little ones because most of them were parents, teen parents. So we did Montessori for them, but really for them as they do it for their own little ones. But in so doing, they also really enjoyed it. They were like pouring, high school students really sitting down to pour, to knit, it was just so nice to see them really engage in something that was healing for them as they also
Mhm.
thought about like how do they support their little ones at home. Um, so we partner with schools, public schools that don't have any Montessori offering. We've had partnership where some schools were really thinking about, can you come and help us do math through a Montessori way of teaching math and supporting math learning to our students. So we only had a partnership where what we were doing was bringing materials and helping students who were struggling. Our teachers wanted more to kids in their box to really understand how they can do instruction better through the Montessori approach. Some schools asked us to come and do literacy, as you know, in Denver, Colorado, the science of reading, which is very well blends so well with Montessori ways of doing literacy or language. So we're partnering with them to do that. So we bring the materials. So the mobility then became us coming to that school with our materials into their classroom and presenting some of those lessons using our Montessori materials. So we
Wow.
have those partnership. Another charter school that we did last year only wanted us to do science. It was a charter school that we came every Saturday for the whole school term to only engage students in science.
Hmm.
So they did all the science, Montessori science, exploration with us, which just opened their kids to love learning and exploring. And so it's a very interesting, program that a lot of people see opportunities to engage in some of their local initiatives within their own uh, um, using the Montessori approach. Like I said, I think there's power or something that we Montessorians can really tap into when we also
Mhm.
think of Montessori as a strategy. Because I think in most cases we just think of it as the setup in which we just do learning, but we don't think of it as a way in which we also think about how we can do everything else, right? That is also even outside just the typical get on the school, get in the classroom, engage with the lesson, very quietly, do a gathering or something like that. But like some of the ways in which we understand learning through a Montessori can be also a strategy in which we can also do everything else with that. So it helps a lot of people with their design thinking and thinking about where the opportunities to engage their own students, their own teachers, their own communities in their own catchment area. So we've existed in that space as well. Um, yeah, then we did what we call the beepers. This is like a leadership fellowship that we did. Beepers came from beep, which was like better is possible. So this was a fellowship where we're testing
Ah.
out what happens when you bring educators. And by educators, we just meant anyone who identify as someone who spends time with young people. So you could have been a teacher, you could be someone at church, you could be anyone to a 4 month fellowship experience where we were using joy, trying to explore joy as a unit of measure in learning. Um, that was really, I think, a success to some of the initiatives we did in Kenya and in Zimbabwe, which we really want to bring into Denver area as differently as we launched Montessori for mothers and grandparents, but really thinking the same platform as well. And then we
Wonderful.
also do global partnership.
That's wonderful, Tatenda.
I know I'm sort of like run close to the hour here. So I really would
So
welcome questions.
interesting. I don't want you to stop. It's this is wonderful.
Yeah. So I think this is our theory of change, right? I think it also makes sense from what you've already been hearing me sharing about. We really were asking ourselves, like, if we do this, then could this be true, right?
Mhm.
Like, if we really place high quality Montessori environments into these spaces, because we were really giving them our materials, really how
Sure.
we love our materials. We're like, if we really bring these materials that are of high quality by design and in nature already, can we then really develop this agency around love of learning? Can we empower parents to go and advocate for their children, which I think we've already
Mhm.
started experiencing where most of our parents are now able to go into their schools and understand who their child is as a learner. Like, I know my child, this is how they learn. On the bus, they're doing this. At home, we're doing this. So we have those parents now that, come to our weekend bus programs and are able to go back into their own schools and partner with their child's teacher and really advocate for a learning that really respond to who their child is as a learner, or be more curious that I've seen them doing this. Uh, is there a way in which they can also be supported like in the same way at school? So we're actually hoping that once we create, we have more of our parents who step into that advocacy role, that we also get
Mhm.
to have them ask for Montessori experiences within our own districts, that they get to ask, the elected official to really also think about Montessori as something that they can be embedded as a choice into the education that's there in Denver. One of my stories that I
Mhm.
didn't share when I worked for the Denver Public School District was I was hired to open the first ever Montessori classroom embedded in an existing elementary school. So they were testing out this idea that if we open a one Montessori classroom within an already existing elementary program, so that parents can also choose into the ECE part of that program. So that there's a Spanish classroom, there was a Montessori classroom, then there was an English classroom. So parents had three choices: either they are in the
Wow.
Montessori classroom, or they're in a Spanish classroom, or they're in a traditional classroom.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, we hope that more parents will go and ask for that for their kids in schools.
How wonderful. Well, they clearly asked the right person to set it up.
Yeah. Yes. Though they wish that I'd stayed more. But with that, I think that's when I realized that the work really was more in the
Mhm.
communities, that nobody was really doing the work in the communities. We often, if not always, expect parents to come to us. We build schools, we build a program, and we want them to come to us. We don't think about really, going to them. So I really wanted
Sure.
to be the person who then, goes to them and help them, get ready and, be able to have the knowledge to choice
Mm.
into something
So
that they
beautiful.
either can travel to,
Hmm.
yeah, and be. So these are some of the things that we have seen so far, right? We've had so many parents who have really engaged. One of our favorite story to share is we were working 2 years ago with like a refugee center program that support refugee women and children who recently resided in the United States, in Denver area especially, where we came and expose them to Montessori education as a way in which they were thinking about how they can also start understanding the education system within the United States. So they wanted an entry point that was easy for parents to feel more relaxed and comfortable. But then what became of it was them literally in the second year of our engagement with them, asking us to train refugee women into Montessori. And I say training here loosely. We were not doing any credential training. We're just doing like a pathway to training. Like, what if they really get exposed to Montessori so that they can then start thinking about can they send them to the Montessori training to get a credential? And most of these refugee women had spent so much of their time in refugee camps, so they don't have the education, maybe
Right.
really enough for them to go and get the credential, right? That's required. But we wanted to give them something that also gives them the confidence to say that I'm also trained in Montessori. I know the Montessori materials. I know how to work with young children,
Mhm.
be it as an assistant or someone working in a Montessori environment in some capacity. So they then
Mhm.
asked us to create a Montessori school for them at the Village Institute in Denver. So after we had worked with the refugee women, we then helped them to be then the teachers in that ECE classroom. And now we actually have two of them this year completing the Montessori credential training. So this was just a
Wow.
2-year partnership that ended up having two women who went to get the training, and I coming back to lead the Montessori school within this refugee center in Denver.
Ah,
So
wonderful.
I know, right? So yeah, so
Yeah,
it's a sort of happy story to just share like the power of creating pathways to training, right? That
that's
really
so beautiful.
people
And
can
that's
choose what
changing
they
generations, right? That's,
very much.
yeah.
Yeah. So we have people asking us to, come and do this work, find wide. I mean, literally, I'm speaking to you 2 a.m. somewhere, around the world, because we just finished our first ever African Montessori conference here in Zimbabwe, where you see a different expression of that work here, where we were able to move Montessori from the United States to Zimbabwe, and in Zimbabwe also outside the classroom into different communities, so much that we had to do our first ever gathering after a year of exploring and playing with ideas of Montessori in different communities in different ways. That we had more than 150 people who came and wanted to learn, ask questions, and think about how does it exist here within the heritage-based curriculum that is the mainstream
Mhm.
education system here in Zimbabwe.
Wow.
So
That's
really,
so
the power of
exciting
exposure.
to hear that the conference went well. I saw the releases, the promotional releases about the conference. I'm so
Mhm.
inspired to hear that it went well, Tatenda. Congratulations.
It did. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
These are some of the stories, and I think, like I said, we already like, we hear a lot of stories. There's a mom who, in one of our Southwest Denver offering, came on the bus with her third, fifth grader. I think she was in fifth grade, and we had the math materials on the bus that day, so we were only exploring math. And the mom was like, "Oh my gosh, she's not yet ready to do multiplication." Like she was like, "No, she is not yet ready." And then I was like, "Can I interest you in just like how we do it in Montessori?" Because the idea was really not to have it do math, but just like have an interest. Like this is how we do math, multiplication in Montessori. And as sat with the child and we engaged in a lesson, she was shocked. She was like, "Oh my gosh, it is the language. You understand three times three. You're saying three taken three times is what?" And they get to physically like interact with that using the beads, right? She was like, "Oh my gosh, she can do multiplication." I'm like, "Yes." As a matter of fact, this is just what we do in ECE in the 3 to 6 environment. Imagine your child is fifth grade, what they could be doing even more.
Right?
So she learned that language itself was an access, to how we do math and how we make math more accessible in Montessori, and using concrete materials to really help, children understand, some of those concepts. So we hear a lot. Like our bus is just a fun, you can think of it as a podcast. You can think of it as just like a social. It's everything because we just hear parents who are in the ahas, or we're asking good questions, or we're like grappling with something, and they just like finding enjoying learning it. Like, "Ah, I can do this. I don't have to know how to do, you know, uh, any difficult concept in learning, but I also have to support my child in learning, some of those skill sets." So it's been interesting to just see like how they are also understanding their role as teachers at home, that they don't need to know algebra, but they need to know how to support their child to love algebra and to really, be interested in learning. That is what they have to do at home. We're not asking them to be Montessori teachers. We're not asking them to be math teachers, but we're asking them to do what they can do at home to support that learning that then helps kids go to school and learn from teachers who are trained in those areas. That's why we're learning. Uh, so really, what's next for us right now? I know for those who've been following us that you haven't seen much interaction. We were fortunate to get a grant to give us a 3-month pause to just do our strategic planning for the next coming 3 years. So we've been engaging with a consulting firm here in Denver that has been helping us really understand what we've done in the past 4 years and codify that into exactly what is it that we do so that the next coming 3 years we are very intentional in going really deep, not so much, expanding as we prepare to then expand after 3 years. So we've been really deep in strategic planning right now. We're excited to sort of share that roadmap early in the spring, as we sort of pushing ourselves either as folks who have built a framework that others can implement in different places, or that they can come and learn from us and go back and implement in ways in which it responds to their own communities. So we've been really doing that, and also testing out what this looks like outside the United States in different parts that are really looking to do this. We were in Madagascar this summer,
Oh,
really
nice.
working with in the mayor's office as they try to think about how to do education better, and renovate their schools, and
Mhm.
revive education systems. Um, so yeah, so we're starting to see this, interest from other parties around the world. We're in Beijing next year, where we're really helping them prior to the conference next year to also think about how do they move education from the cities into rural Beijing, into rural China, as well. So we are really excited to really partner with those who are really thinking about how does this look like in their own communities differently. It doesn't have to be exactly what it is in Denver, but I think the idea that we can innovate and we can start thinking about how to move education outside our own little bubbles is what we are interested in. For us, is through the bus. For some people, it could be something else. Who else? Who knows what, right? So we are really interested in partnering with those who are also actually thinking about innovation and equity in education.
Oh.
I'm gonna like stop here and offer a platform to share so that we're able to like see each other's faces when I stop sharing, for those who want to ask questions.
I don't see anything in the chat yet, but folks, if you have any questions to Tenda, oh, good. If we were interested in supporting you or contacting you, it looked like maybe there was
Oh, let me go
contact
back to that slide.
information.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. We can also put your email in the chat. We want to be sure that folks can connect with you. Tatenda at montessorionwheels.org. I just love the BIP, the better is possible. Uh,
Yes.
I love the continuous improvement cycle and that idea that we're
Mhm.
always learning and have opportunities to improve. We have a comment. Uh, Jean Marie says, no questions, but a big, huge thank you for the work you do and for being up so early for us. Yes. So I second that, Jean Marie. Thank you so much, Tatenda, for being up in the middle of the night on the other side of the world from us. We're so grateful for all the amazing work that you're doing. Crystal says, so inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing your story and journey. Um, Bill Summers says he really resonated with the term cultural humility. And Mike Levin says, amazing work that you're doing. Thank you for sharing. And to Tenda, again, my gratitude for your willingness to be here with us today and for going above and beyond in the middle of the night. I really appreciate the work that you're doing to, uh, the social justice work that you're doing, the work in making Montessori accessible and taking the message all around the world.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's fun work that I like to do, so I don't think there's any time that will stop me from doing this. I'll tell you something about the bip work. Also, I think we're very intentional in really getting it to sound, like, the bip, the car, the bipping, right? For us, I
Uh-huh.
think it also had like a meaning around consciousness. Like when you hear the bip, it's a call to consciousness, to alertness. So we wanted to alert people to what could be possible when we really, do this well. So yeah, we also played with that as well. Like, yeah,
That's
you know.
beautiful. Well, again, thank you. And folks, if you're interested in reaching out to Tenda at montessorionwheels.org. Again, to Tenda, safe travels and best wishes as you continue this important work. Again, thank you from all of us here this evening, and especially from those of us here at Sarasota University. We appreciate you, and I hope to see you in person soon.
Alrighty. Well, thank you. Sure. See you stateside very soon.
Yes, yes, I look forward to that. Thanks, everyone, and happy holidays to everyone. We look forward to seeing you in January. Remember that you can find the recordings of our colloquium sessions on YouTube. You can do a YouTube search. We have a Sarasota University channel, and you can find the recordings there. Again, thanks everyone for being here. Happy holidays. Stay warm, and we'll see you in January. Bye bye for now.
Bye bye.